to start the recording, and that recording now is underway. So I think we'll go ahead and start this webinar. The webinar today is really focused on the state of extension, and the conversation that I would normally have at fall conference, except this year fall conference is completely focused on being a builder and an innovator and thinking about design thinking as a method to continue to build our capacity as builders and innovators and designers. And so I think a really exciting opportunity to do that. So we're not going to detract from that conversation. So today, the state of extension, the state of Nebraska extension, an opportunity to let everybody know kind of where we're at and a little bit about where we're going. So if you have not logged into Slido yet, I would encourage you to do that. Looks like we have 116 responses to our first poll. And I think we'll go ahead and close that first poll, and Angie, open up the questions pod for people to ask questions there or in the Zoom chat, whichever you prefer. One of the things I really enjoy is watching Deb Hammernick's Facebook post. This was there this morning, a photo from the Nebraska Historical Society and from 1904. And this gentleman and others are Cornhuskers. In fact, that was back in the day where an individual could husk about 60 bushels of corn, was paid 4 cents a bushel, so about $2.40 for a day's wage. And what's kind of fun to think about is Extension's role in helping people involved in agriculture, youth, families, communities, nutrition, etc. Think about what modern technology means to them and how they could use modern technology to improve their lives. And so here we are looking back about 110 years and thinking about what life was like back then, making $2.40 a day and thinking that's a pretty good wage. Horse-drawn implements, a lot of handwork, etc. So the original Cornhuskers, that spirit is still in us and among us. So our agenda for today, we've got nine topics to look at there. There will be additional Slido polls as we go through the topics. And so we're going to talk about budget, a little bit about hiring, some current projects that we're working on, some very slight revisions to Activity Insight, our commitment to growing our competency, one of the C's in Trust Edge, our now rollout of our Strengthening Nebraska's Ag Economy Initiative with some key hires in that area, a little bit of an update on Trust Edge. Want to share a few thoughts from John Cotter about change, and then our commitment to growing Nebraska. So the Slido number is 7032. Angie, if you there it is. It's actually in the chat. If you look at Angie's chat post from just a few minutes ago, it's in the chat. So let's jump in. So a little bit of information on the budget. The information can be found on the UNL Chancellor's website, so don't hesitate to go there for updates if you want updates. So the total budget shortfall, both from the state as well as internal, is currently $50 million. We do expect some additional either callbacks or possible additional cuts coming in the next legislative session. I share that with you not to scare you. We've actually held back some dollars. Ronnie held back some dollars from budget allocations this year to cover a callback if that occurs. So I don't view the continued revenue shortfall as a huge threat to us right now, and we're actually putting mechanisms into place to deal with that. Of the $50 million, UNL's share is $8.5 million. INR's share is about $3.2 million. And if you've been watching the news, on November 15th, Chancellor Green did announce these cuts, these reductions, proposed reductions to the Academic Program Committee focused on budget reductions. And as you look down through that list, all of those are fairly benign in terms of the impact on people. But the total reductions from this first round, 1.2 million. We also know that there's another round coming. And so on December 6th, the APC will receive proposals for additional cuts. INR cuts totaling $2 million will be announced on December 6th. So more information on that closer to December 6th. The work that's being done now to prepare for those reductions is in place. And so, but we will not be announcing those until just right around December 6th. And our commitment is certainly to let impacted programs know before that. You also, I think, all know about the budget response teams, the $30 million target. And if you read the paper, they've already achieved $6.5 million toward this by simply eliminating vacant positions. And there are, these areas that they're working in, a total of 71 additional recommendations that have been approved in spirit, but not in practice. And so our good friend Marjorie Kostelnik is leading the conversation around this, and obviously critical as we think about what this really looks like and how we deal with this. Of course, the mileage reduction to 25 cents, extremely troubling for extension with our commitment to be where we need to be. And the fact that personal vehicles have been generously used to support that travel, and that this reduction of 25 cents has an impact on all of us that use personal vehicles primarily for extension work. But as you look down the list, there are potentially other things there that will ultimately impact us in some form or fashion. And as I've shared before, and it's a challenge, obviously, is that the more that we can save in this model, the better opportunity that we have to preserve positions, extension positions. So these BRT activities are really important. So budget challenges, I always think about this in the context of what can I control, what can I do to deal with this. There are obviously some choices here. One option is to wring your hands and say the sky is falling. That's not the option that we would propose for you. We would suggest that you continue to focus on the value of the work that you do and continue to deliver high value, high quality extension programming. And frankly, that's the value proposition that puts Nebraska Extension in a better position in a budget challenge to continue the work that we do and perhaps minimize the risks that we face relative to potential reductions. To contain costs wherever possible, any cash that we can save only helps us as we move forward. And frankly, that's part of the reason they implemented the 25-cent mileage rate. To generate revenue whenever possible. So certainly grants, but also program fees, sponsorships, any reasonable way, any legal way that we can use to generate revenue is critically important. And then this idea of program alignment, so staying true to what we're trying to accomplish here in Extension, the focus area, your responsibility in that area relative to the issue team or interest group that you're involved in. And then if you're an educator, how do we think about delivering programs and resources to your accountability region? And more work to be done in those areas. But I think program alignment is really important right now. Let's not go do things that don't contribute to the greater whole. And let's stay focused on our priorities, the 18 issues that Nebraskans helped us identify, to stay focused on issues that they are primarily interested in. And then I mentioned this earlier, our own personal attitude in all this, the choice that we make as we go about doing our work and our commitment to make a difference for Nebraskans. So those are some suggestions, and I certainly respect everybody in terms of where you're at and the work that you do. Just encourage you to consider these thoughts as you react and respond to the budget scenario. So now we're done with the budget. If you have questions about the budget, you're welcome to enter those in the Zoom chat or on the question window that's open in Slido. Either one, you're invited. So some important questions that we need to continue to think about as we work to move Nebraska Extension forward. So the first one, how can Nebraska Extension stay ahead of the curve on relevancy, responsiveness, and impact? And, I've been active in extension leadership roles now for 10 years. And the extension programs across this country that are losing ground, both relative to budget, but also relative to their status within their land-grant university, are the ones that have stayed very traditional, that have tried to hold to the old ways and not be innovative and opportunistic about the way we move forward. And frankly, that's part of the reason that we've pushed all of you to think differently about your work and the way you go about doing your work and the way we collaborate and things like that. So how can we continue to stay ahead of the curve? Because getting behind the curve in a budget scenario is not a good place to be. We want to be valued. We want to continue to be valued by our constituents, by our university, by our coworkers and partners. The second important question, how does innovation position Nebraska Extension to not only be highly effective, but also inherently valued? And so this kind of relates to the first question, but this idea of innovation in all things. And we want you to think about innovation in the broad context. So it's not only innovating new programs, but it's how we deliver programs, how we engage learners, how we assess the value, the impact, the effectiveness of the work that we do, et cetera. And all of those perspectives are important as we think about innovation, and especially our commitment to try to stay ahead of the curve. And then this last question, can we create a collaborative work environment where we achieve more than the sum of our individual efforts? And in fact, I think we've done that at Nebraska Extension fairly well over the years, but we have an opportunity to continue to do that and continue to build on the collaborative base that we started with our action teams. And so I think those are three pretty important questions for us to think about as we think about where this organization is going and how we continue to position ourselves for the kinds of resources, support, and frankly, the acknowledgement that we deserve. So I want to share with you a survey that we did in 2012, and there's going to be at least 150 people in Extension right now who were not here in 2012, and so you're going to look at this survey and say, where the heck did that come from? Well, we did do this survey in 2012, and it's really helped drive much of our thinking about where we've gone in the last 5 years. And so we were thinking about strategic initiatives at that time, and we just gave everybody the opportunity to weigh in on these ideas and rate these ideas. 1 was very important to a score of 5 is not important, and so as everyone in 2012 responded to this poll, about 200 respondents out of about 300 research-based, unbiased, and trusted information, number 1 on the list. An interest in creativity and innovation, number 2. The commitment to stay current in our area of expertise, number 3. Working on extension culture, number 4. Extension marketing, number 5. Partnerships, teamwork, our staffing philosophy. In fact, really all of these, down to the last one on public policy, frankly, fairly similar in terms of ratings, all certainly on the top third of a 1 through 5 rating scale. And I don't think anybody was against public policy, so our public policy folks that work in this area, no harm, no foul here. Just saying, should we put more resources into that area? A question about that. So you should have a poll now in front of you to give us some feedback. In what ways are our strategic priorities similar or different from 2012? And this is just an opportunity for you to weigh in on these ideas and how you react to those. So we'll leave that poll up for a little while, invite you to enter some words or phrases that describe that. So as we think about extension in Nebraska, there really are amazing things happening, so many things that I'm really proud of, simply amazed at the work that all of you are doing. And so we want to share some of those things with you as we go forward today. The first thing that I think is really interesting is that since last November, in the last 12 months, in other words, we have actually hired 42 new employees in the midst of a hiring freeze that impacted us for about 8 months on the educator side. A lot of these employees that you see on this graphic, thanks to Mike Reese, are work in the NEP area. But if you look down through that list, there are 6 specialists that we've hired and some really, really critical hires in our specialist area. There are 12 new extension educators that have been hired since last November, 19 assistants, and then 5 people joined our administrative team, including Eric, who works at the front desk here in our state office, but also Dave Varner and John Westra and Bill Kranz as well. And so excited and happy about these people that continue to join our team. And I'll tell you what, it's just been so much fun to see the kind of talent that we're able to bring to Nebraska Extension and the work that we do. So I'd also like to give you an update on where we're at on educator assistant vacancies. And I know the print is fairly small on this. And so I apologize for that, but there are 37 entries on this list. That's why the print is small. But I'd ask you to look at the color coding. So if it's green, that means that position has been filled. And so there are 16 filled educator positions in 2017 so far. Very exciting, again, the kind of talent that we're bringing in. And we have a commitment, and in fact, Mike Boehm has supported this commitment now that he is in the position to approve searches for extension educators, in fact, all faculty, that he's given us the opportunity to jump back into this educator hiring area, and our REDs, associate REDs, have been working hard to make this happen. And there's just a lot of good things going on in this area. So 16 filled extension educator positions. In some cases, some of these don't start for a while. So the Box Butte Learning Child position, Tiffany Rice has a teaching contract in Sutherland, so she will join us next June. That position has been open for a couple of years, and so we're really excited to get that position filled. Kurt Montoya coming into Butler Community Vitality. That position has been open for a while. Knuckles Thayer, CVI. Jason Weigel coming in from Pennsylvania. That's been open for a while. But just a lot of amazing talent that we're bringing into the system with these 16 new hires. There are also 12 positions in red. These are positions that are currently open that we're searching for right now. And then an additional 9 positions that are in the queue. Some of these positions have been vacated recently, and so we are waiting for approval from Vice Chancellor Boehm to open searches in these positions, realizing that our assistant positions, extension assistant positions, require presidential approval. So we have a little work to do there. But all in all, some progress on these 37 educator and assistant vacancies. So hats off to the REDs, associate REDs that are getting this important work done for us. So you need to be in Slido to see the poll. We do have 31 folks that have responded to the poll. So the poll is in Slido. Log into Slido and then go to room number 7032, hashtag 7032. So a couple of projects that we're working on. I think many of you know about these projects, and that is several things that we've been working on here. The educator salary equity study, we've completed much of this work. We did ask all of the educators to weigh in, give us prior work experience. We gave credit for prior relevant prior work experience. So we are finishing that report. We report to Faculty Senate on November 28th. Excited about sharing that. There are some equity issues that we will be addressing, and and we're excited to be able to respond to those. Mike Boehm has made a commitment to help us fund several of those equity issues that are out there, and so we'll be working on those. You may also be aware that we're working on a transportation study, the idea that we would locate about 25 vehicles across the state. We're getting more information on that. We frankly put a lot of our effort into the educator salary equity study leading up to the Faculty Senate meeting on November 28th. Now we'll turn our attention to the transportation study, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, maybe at the December chat with Chuck, we'll share more information from that and give you an idea of what we're thinking relative to this opportunity to reduce our dependence on personal vehicles for travel across the state. I've also asked Dan Cotton to work on identifying some video conferencing technology that would help upgrade a video conferencing room if you have a conference room or a small meeting room in your extension office or at the fairgrounds or another location where you can work. And we're looking at identifying that technology, and then more on that in December. Our intent is to work with you to better equip your meeting rooms so that good interactive video conferencing using primarily Zoom is a reality for many people. And again, maybe take a little more pressure off of the mileage reduction that we're all dealing with. Activity Insight, we're in the process of making some very minor changes to Activity Insight, so please don't get too excited about this. But a couple of things that we're doing that we would like you to really think about. The first one is to really focus on quality over quantity. So we're limiting in the first two sections, the one on either new or significantly revised programs or products, a limit of 5 entries in that section. And then in the next section on extension programs delivered, 5 entries in that section as well. And so the opportunity there to really focus on quality, the opportunity to maybe roll up some of the work that you do. And I realize that there may be some things that you think are important to your program. There won't be a good way to report that if you can only enter 5 things per section. And we apologize for that, but at the same time, I think you really want to stand on the things that you do well and do best. So it's quality over quantity. So we're working with Activity Insight to make these changes, and not sure exactly what the change date is, but whatever you enter into Activity Insight now, assuming you don't go beyond 5 entries per section, those entries will not be lost. You'll also have the opportunity, like last year, to identify direct contributions to your issue team or interest group. One change is you'll only be able to identify 1 issue team or 1 interest group per entry. And then you'll also be able to identify contributions to the issue that are outside of the issue team. And we recognize that many of you do work in addition to the issue team work that you do, and we invite you to include that as well. And then some clarification on how you're working your position description. So last year, this last page of Activity Insight, where we asked you to tell us about, how are you engaging in your accountability region, for example. People tended to put in a lot of programs that they'd reported in another part of Activity Insight. So we're simply asking you now to tell us in a more conceptual way, what are you doing in your accountability region? What are you doing to engage specialists? Or if you're a specialist, what are you doing to engage educators, et cetera, et cetera? The due date for Activity Insight reports hasn't changed. It's still on or about January 15th. There will be an overview video and then Zoom-based training sessions. I think those Zoom-based training sessions have already been announced, but we'll do an overview video so that you know what the basic changes are and how to handle those. You know, we've had a commitment for the last 5 years to growing the competency of this organization, which means all of you. And it was kind of fun this weekend. I was looking back over our fall conference themes for the last 5 years and remembering in 2013 we were talking about the strategic initiatives, that slide I showed you earlier, the kinds of things we might want to focus on going forward. In 2014, we really talked about catalyzing innovation, and that's when we rolled out the Innovation, New Audience, and Professional Development small grant programs, and those have been used extensively. Well over $1 million that we've invested back in you and your ideas and your approaches that were either innovative or focused on new audiences or opportunities for you or a team, a group of you to work together on a professional development opportunity, really focused on what those look like. By the way, Angie did post in the chat, the Zoom chat, the dates for the Activity Insight trainings that have already been identified. 2015, we talked about demand-driven extension and collaboration, and that's where we rolled out the issue teams and the interest groups, and the link there to our My Extension website that has a lot of the information about that. And then last year, the work that Dan Cotton did to really help us think about innovation and program delivery and learner engagement, and thinking about how we engage learners in really modern, contemporary ways and in ways that they want to be engaged. And then this year, this really exciting program that Dave Varner and company have put together around being a builder and the BP10 and with Gallup, and then working with Catherine Segovia, a 4-H'er from Dawson County who works at Stanford in their D school, and a session to help us think about design thinking, and a hands-on session where you'll get to work in dyads to really build your capacity here, and then highlighted by 3-2-1 pitches. And I'll tell you what, folks, I'm hearing a buzz about this. It's so exciting to hear you think about, and you know, the work that you're doing in these pitch teams. 5 pitch teams will be recognized out of the group in our final session before we close with our luncheon. And then our ongoing commitment to growing our competency through our professional development programs like Trust Edge Coaching, Navigating Difference, 7 Habits. Eureka that we did 3 years, we may bring Eureka back here in a year or two once the budget scenario settles down a little bit. Our commitment to unit leader briefings and training. Tech Time with Angie. Angie's really stepped up to help us gain new capacity around technology and how we use technology in really creative and innovative ways. Some work that Rick Rasby is doing in March to put together a series of engagements in primarily the ag and natural resources area, which includes community environment, to build capacity in your program area. So a 3-day experience here in Lincoln, connecting with departments and graduate students and so on. And then the really important work that our team has done around cultural competence and the Navigating Difference workshops that we're doing. All of these things are important, and all of you have the opportunity to be part of these really important professional development offerings. Last year at this time, we announced that we were going to focus some new resources on Nebraska's agricultural economy. I think this is really important as we think about extension and extension work going forward. We do know that the current economic downturn is driven to a large extent, not wholly, but to a large extent by low commodity prices. And so we announced this initiative that was really focused on 4 different areas: financial management and marketing skills for farmers and ranchers, financial impact of crop and livestock production practices. So thinking about how do we contain cost? How do we work to try to keep the cost of production below the commodity prices, which is a big challenge right now, but we have a lot of resources that we can use to help deal with that. partnering with the Nebraska Department of Agriculture to help ag producers and their families manage stress. And then lastly, assisting Nebraska businesses and communities that deal with financial downturns, because this downturn in the ag economy has impact on Main Street. So all of those initiatives that we thought about as we think about how we focus on this. So I'm just really, really thrilled that we've been able to make some very, very strategic hires. So we've put into place 4 regional ag systems economists. Jessica Groskopf was already doing this work out in the Panhandle, so we did redefine her position description a little bit in her title. We did move Robert Tigner from Red Willow County into this regional ag system economist role for West Central. Jim Jansen from a beef educator into this work in Northeast, and then hired Austin Durfeld in the Southeast to do this work as well, working out of the Kimmel office. I was really pleased that Al Vinali was willing, with his interest and commitment to farm and ranch transitions, some amazing work that he was doing in his educator role, moving his position to Lincoln, to the Ag Econ department, and providing statewide leadership on farm and ranch transitions. I would guess Alan is already connected with you in some form or fashion on a statewide delivery mechanism for this really critical work as farm and ranch families think about what their future looks like and how they plan and organize for that. A position that's been open for a couple of years, Roger Wilson's position. Many of you knew Roger, working in the Farm and Ranch Management Analytics area. Glennis McClure from the Beatrice area, in fact, doing economic development work in the Beatrice area, starts, I believe, November 28th in this role, a critically important role on our enterprise budgets and a number of other things that we do more on the analysis side relative to farm and ranch management. And then our specialists really stepping up to support this area, certainly in Ag Econ, but in other areas as well. And finally, to continue to grow the capacity and the programs and the work that we're doing in Issue Team 13 around improving short and long-term economic viability of crop and livestock production. So critically important. Trust Edge has been an important part of what we're doing and kicked off last year with the survey that we did where almost 90% of you responded to the survey, helped us focus on this issue of trust. Since then, we've put into place a facilitator team, a training facilitator team. The thing about trust, and the thing that David Horsager talks about, is that trust in reality is a competency. Not everybody has this competence at a high level. And so what we believe is that by engaging all of you in this Trust Edge workshop, that we have an opportunity to build our capacity around trust. And we all know it's critically important as we work with stakeholders and learners, as we work with each other, it's critically important. And with our organization, not only Nebraska Extension, but the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, trust is just a critical part of that. By the way, there is a Slido poll asking you to use one word to describe the importance of trust to Nebraska Extension, and you'll see in a minute that we're actually building a word cloud around this. So if you want to repeat what someone else has reported, you're absolutely welcome to do that. A special thank you to our presenting facilitator team. These folks have really stepped up, Lisa, Jenny, Lauren, and Dave. They took the training. Now they are as a team. They've completed, I believe, 3 workshops and more to come. In fact, we're going to keep doing these Trust Edge workshops until we've exhausted the demand for them. They've been, I think, a really good experience and one that the people who have participated have benefited from. The other thing in this whole Trust Edge area is that as we get feedback from workshop participants, as well as the survey that we did earlier, we've been implementing a number of things in response to your interest, your ideas around this. And so the unit leader training, the My Extension portal, focusing on leveraging individual, and sorry about the misspelling on collective strengths. The NASEB Next Gen Task Force, helping NASEB think about what their future looks like. Coming in December, new communication tools for the front desk in our extension offices around the accountability regions, and then extension board training tools also coming in December. So critically important to us as we think about trust going forward. And if you've not signed up for a workshop, we encourage you to do so. Talk to people who have been involved in the workshop. I think you'll find that people are having good experiences. One of the things that I've done is to connect with workshop participants towards the end of the workshop and just have an open conversation. Any question is welcome. We talk about whatever people are wanting to talk about, and some tough stuff, some challenging questions, and the opportunity to interact is just much, much appreciated. So that's been great. So let's talk about change for just a little bit. And change is upon us. John Cotter is a faculty member at Harvard in the business school, and he's written a book about leading change, and his first edition came out in 1996, so about 20 years ago. And in his preface, he says this: by any objective measure, the amount of significant, often traumatic change in organizations has grown tremendously over the past decades. Now think about that. That was his view of the world in 1996. In 2016, he revised the book, and the jacket cover says this: little did he, referring to John Cotter, little did he know that the pace and magnitude of change in the decades to come after 1996 would be even more significant, rocking the foundations of global businesses and turning the world economy on its head. And then the second statement: we've learned that widespread and difficult change is no longer the exception, it's the rule. 2012 version. And, as you look around at our economy, and as you look around, it's what's been happening to business, to nonprofits, but also to land-grant universities across this country, striking changes that have impacted the way they deliver programs, the way they engage students and stakeholders and non-credit learners, and the kinds of cuts that we've seen that are just really amazing and challenging as we work through those. And Nebraska Extension has not been exempt from the kinds of changes that Dr. Cotter talks about. One of the things that Dr. Cotter talks about is leading change, and how do you do this well? And I've tried to be very transparent with a lot of folks who said, you didn't do this change model very, very well, and we expect better. And I would agree with that. There have been a lot of changes in Nebraska Extension over the last 5 years, a number that I'm extremely proud of. We'll talk more about those in a few minutes. But also that change is creating a challenge for all of us in some form or fashion. So these are the 8 things that Dr. Cotter talks about in terms of leading change. One is to establish a sense of urgency. And, when we really started on things like Issue Team, the sense of urgency that we tried to think about was not driven by a budget scenario. Well, right now, today it is. And I would suggest to you that some of the changes that we are making are in the midst of, and some that we've accomplished, in fact, position us better to be a valued organization in this big university, and thinking about how we demonstrate value and solidify our position as a valued unit organization at the University of Nebraska. Creating a guiding coalition. This was really the Extension leadership team. Could we have engaged more people in that conversation? Yes, and we should have. We did do a number of webinars, and many people were loyal to those webinars, thinking about how we are engaged in this change process that we're in, developing a vision and a strategy. So where are we going with all this? And communicating that change vision. One of the big C's in Trust Edge. empowering employees for broad-based action, and that's part of the reason we reviewed the number of professional development opportunities we've provided over the last couple of years. Generating some short-term wins, and we've got several of our issue teams that are already generating wins, generating accomplishments. The YIBO team, I think, is one example, but there are more. And those short-term wins, those short-term accomplishments are really important for us. Consolidating gains and producing more change. Yes, there's more change to come. This is, the fast water of change that we're in. And then finally, anchoring new approaches in the culture. And this is, I think, an important piece as we think about change. The kinds of things that we're involved in, the issue teams, the interest groups, these are not going away. It's part of our work now. It's part of what we stand for and the way we go about doing our work. So, if you're a person who hasn't quite totally bought in, maybe it's time to think about that. So this image, I think, describes the process and the approach that we've used to try to think about how we build our capacity. And we've titled this Growing Nebraska, Stepping Up to Serve Our State. And it really started in 2014 as we identified 8 elements of excellence. And if you've not looked at those recently, we would encourage you to take a look and let us know how we can help you build these 8 different elements of excellence. We decided to focus on 7 different program areas. That's not a big departure from where we were at when I came in 2012, but we solidified that and asking in our staffing plan for extension educators especially to focus 80% of their time in their program area and to work within an accountability region to make sure that we were delivering programs to all Nebraskans, all 93 counties, and then helping us hire great talent. And I think this 80% focus model is particularly attractive, especially to new degree holders who are thinking about how do they put their new knowledge to work. Well, the 80% programmatic focus helps us think about that. And then in 2015, as we went about the process of the survey of 22,000 Nebraskans who helped us identify the 18 issues that we're working on with our issue team and our commitment to continue to examine emerging issues. And, we're 2 years into our issue teams now. This idea of a demand-driven, interdisciplinary, innovative, and synergistic model that helps us accomplish more than the sum of our parts. And we just think that's critically important. And we want to continue to grow our issue team platform. And then at the end of the day, what really matters is how Nebraska Extension is effective for stakeholders, for decision makers, for leaders in the University of Nebraska system, that we're focused on being relevant for Nebraskans, focused on big issues, hiring top-notch expertise, continuing our focus to be science-based, to be highly engaged with learners, and to be accountable and impactful. And so you do have a Slido poll that asks you how our commitment to collaboration through our issue team model is beginning to pay dividends. A lot of votes there in the middle around number 3, about 35% on number 4. And so if you haven't voted on that, we'll give you another moment. And then our final question around issue teams and this image that you're looking at right now is what are some ideas that you have to continue to improve and develop our issue team model going forward? So before I leave this slide and begin to wrap up and open it up for more general questions, one of the things that I did want to share with you is as I talk about these ideas and what we're doing here in Nebraska Extension with my peers, with extension directors and administrators across this country, a lot of interest, a lot of curiosity about what we're doing here and how we're doing it. And I can tell you that we didn't do this because we wanted to be a national leader, but a lot of states are looking at us and thinking about what we're doing here. One of the critical things that we have done, in my mind, is that we've been able to move into this demand-driven innovation and synergistic model without abandoning our county presence. A lot of states, and you don't have to look very far north and east to find states that no longer have university paid county extension professionals. And that changes the interaction and the relationship that they have with the stakeholders, with the decision makers, especially at the county level in their state. We believe that a highly distributed, in this case, 83 of our 93 counties have extension offices, a highly distributed, locally based extension program is the way to go in terms of staying connected to local stakeholders across our state. So as we begin to wrap up here and invite you to ask any questions that you might have in either the Zoom chat or here in Angie in just a few minutes, we'll go back to the questions window on Slido. Right now you have the opportunity to weigh in. And again, remember on Slido, all of your comments are anonymous, so you don't need to worry about that. If you have ideas on how to improve our issue team model, please weigh in on those. We would like to hear from you. So what's next? Well, obviously the first thing we have to do, and the thing that's occupying a lot of my time, is how we deal with the state and university budget. And, we overviewed this to begin our conversation today, and we have more announcements to come, and obviously that creates some stress. And again, we would encourage all of you to try to focus beyond that, to stay focused on the good work that you're doing and the important difference that you make for stakeholders. We are absolutely committed to continuing to hire great talent. And if you look back on that image that Mike Reese created of the 42 new people that we've hired since last November. By the way, it was 50 the year before that, 50 the year before that, 50 the year before that. A lot of new talent coming into Nebraska Extension, and we're committed to that. We're committed to hiring great talent. We want to continue to grow our issue team platform. We just think this collaboration platform that we've created with all of you is critically important. And you're weighing in right now. I can see a lot of ideas, 18 ideas that have already been submitted around how we improve this model, how we make it better and more effective going forward. For me, and I hope for all of you, in fact, we have 350 people signed up for Fall Conference, a fun and dynamic Fall Conference. I hope you'll all come. I hope you'll all enjoy not only the learning opportunities, but also the fellowship and the opportunity to see friends that maybe you haven't seen for a while, and really have a quality experience at our Fall Conference in Kearney in November. By the way, that starts a week from today. Our commitment to continuing to making Nebraska Extension a great place to be an extension professional. We sincerely hope that all of you that have made the choice to come and work for Nebraska Extension view that as an opportunity. And yes, we're going to get through this budget scenario and we're going to keep moving. But we do want Nebraska Extension to be a great place to work, a great place for you to achieve your dreams, so the kinds of things that you would like to accomplish. And so we're committed to that, and to being as transparent and open to suggestion as we can possibly be relative to that going forward. We do hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving break. And let me just close with this thought. First of all, a big thank you to all of you. And this quote from Mark Twain: 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sail, explore, dream, and discover. I think Mark Twain says it very well. We're in a time of rapid change, but we're also in a time of huge opportunity, and this amazing opportunity that we have to really be innovative and creative, think better how we serve Nebraskans, and in the process have a lot of fun and take a little risk and enjoy the path forward, enjoy the journey. So with that, I'm going to end my comments, and we have about 10 minutes left here. If you have additional questions you would like to post either in the Zoom chat or on the questions poll, in Slido. There's a question here on Activity Insight. We are to report direct contributions for only one issue team. How do we decide which issue team if we've been involved in two teams? So the response to that question is you have 5 inputs. So one input could be your contributions to one issue team if you're on another issue team. A second input could be your direct contributions to the second issue team. And then you have 3 more inputs to identify other things that you've done, maybe for an interest group, maybe things that are related to that issue, but we're not part of the issue team. So yes, you get 5 opportunities to report 5 different key, high quality accomplishments, contributions, either to an issue team, an interest group, or to the issue specifically. So that opportunity is absolutely there. One question on our extension educators. Someone did notice that Beth Janning, who's been involved with Raising Nebraska, is moving to Adams and Webster counties. We're thrilled to have Beth in this role. We'll miss her at Raising Nebraska. We are in the process of redefining that position. But, you know, Beth got Raising Nebraska off the ground. And I just appreciate so much the work that Beth has done to get us to this point. And now we have an opportunity to continue moving forward as we think about what it means and what it looks like to create this amazing and dynamic interactive space we call Raising Nebraska. So yes, Beth has not gone away. She has recommitted through her choice to a county-based role with 4-H youth development that we very much appreciate. So I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and go back to the main screen and give